Hey, I'm Heather Wilson of High Gear Success, and we're going to talk about securing and working with motorsports event volunteers. So, working with volunteers is a huge responsibility. It requires a lot of clear communication, a lot of preparation, training, understanding, and of course, a backup plan. People are giving up their time and talents to help your organization out, plus, sometimes they're incurring costs to travel there and support your event, so be sure to treat them right. I want to share some best practices that I've learned when working with event volunteers and I've shared with other motorsports event organizers. And the first one is to have a dedicated person who is working with the volunteers. That way, the volunteers know who to go to. And within your organization, you know that that person is handling the process from start to finish. Next, you need to know what you need help with. So, what specific task are you looking for volunteers to help with? Can it be learned quickly in 15 minutes before the day starts, or does it require extensive time and training or even particular expertise to execute? Next, you're going to establish volunteer roles and determine if those are short or long term opportunities so you can clearly convey to the volunteer what they're getting into. You're going to have a place on your website to list those roles and how to get involved. And ideally, you're going to have a contact form that people can fill out if they're interested in volunteering with your organization. So it keeps everything nice and organized. You have all of their information and you can reach out to go through the next steps. Outline expectations for volunteers, both behavior and duty. You don't want a volunteer that's picking fights with other volunteers or doesn't interact well with the public. And of course, we want them to actually fulfill their obligations. So make sure that we are being upfront and clear about our expectations for volunteers. It might even be a little one-sheeter contract that you have them sign. Next, give them perks or incentives so that they want to volunteer for their organization. These could be things like getting into the event free, getting early access, getting a t shirt, food, swag, or even throwing a volunteer appreciation party at the end of the year. Partner with other organizations, community organizations, colleges, churches, etc., to utilize some of their volunteers with your event. Next, my favorite part is just to really utilize people for their strengths and their interests, like what they're happy doing. Don't make somebody do something that they really aren't interested in doing. You're going to have a much better experience for both you and them if it's something that they know and want to do. And of course, people love to be asked to help. So make sure that you are reaching out and saying, like, hey, we need volunteers. Would you be interested in helping with this? That will go a long way, and you'll get a lot more volunteers than if you just sit back and say that nobody's interested, nobody volunteers to help. You have to make the ask. So, next, we're going to talk about best practices with working with volunteers. That was about securing volunteers and getting them into your organization. Now, we're going to talk about working with them. So, communication is key. You want to communicate early and often. Make sure that everything's clear. They know what time to arrive, they know what they're doing. Everything needs to be communicated. Provide them a go-to person if they have questions. So ideally, this is the person in charge of all the volunteers. Make sure that they know how they can access that person if something pops up. Supply them with the information they need to be successful. Do they need to bring water, snacks, sunscreen? Will you be providing it? Do they need to go to a designated check-in area? Do they have the schedule to know exactly how long they're going to be volunteering, where it's located? Like, make it easy for them, right? Introduce them to everybody that they're going to be interacting or working with. Even if you think they may know some people, it's always good to do a quick introduction when you start the day. Make it a fun environment and experience. Nobody wants to volunteer and be miserable. They're giving up their time and their talents for you. So make sure that they're having a fun time and don't micromanage. So we don't want to be all up in their business the whole day. That way they can actually have some self-fulfillment. On the flip side, don't just abandon them and leave them helpless without resources because that's really frustrating as well. Check in with them to see how they're doing throughout the event. Give them breaks, maybe rotate in shifts. Help them understand the impact of their volunteering. Make sure that you're very appreciative. Maybe have thank you notes from some of the participants or other members of the club. A handwritten note can go a long way. And thank them before, during, and after the event. Make sure that they know that they're appreciated. You can do this via email. You could do social media spotlights to highlight volunteers. Just make them feel appreciated. And one of my favorite things is to make sure that you get their feedback after the event in an anonymous survey. So I love to send surveys out via MailChimp. It integrates with the email really well. And you can see, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, if they can give you any feedback on how the process could improve. It can be anonymous or they can choose to leave their name and get in touch with you. This will give you really good insight on where you can clean up the process for the next volunteer. And again, volunteers are giving up their time. Some of them may be really zealous and want to like commit to everything, but make sure that you don't burn them out. Because if you put too much on a particular volunteer over time, they're going to be really hot really fast and then they're going to burn out, and that's going to leave a really big hole in your organization. So make sure that we're spreading out the work and not overwhelming the volunteers, even if they're asking to take on a lot of stuff. Empower them to share their ideas with you, and have a backup plan when things don't always go as planned. Sometimes people don't show up, they don't always follow through, but you've got a backup plan so you'll be ready to go. And I hope these tips for securing and working with event volunteers have been helpful to you. And if you need any help beyond this video, make sure to check out highgearsuccess.com. Again, I'm Heather Wilson. Thanks so much for being here.